Likkutei Sichos, Chelek Yud Ches, volume 18, Shelach. This is the fifth Sichah, Hey. In the Pasuk Reishis Arisesechem Chala Torimu Truma Kitrumas Geiden Kein Torimu Oisa. In the Parshas Shelach, Perek Tezvav, Pasuk Chav, the Pasuk says, the first portion of your dough, Reishis Arisesechem, you shall separate Chala for a gift, as in the case of the gift of Kitrumas Geiden as a threshing floor. So what should you do? So shall you separate. So Rashi says that on Rashi's Mefarsh Ketrumas Gerin, Rashi explains, what does it mean? You shall separate. You shall separate. Rashi says, "Sheloi nemar by Ketrumas Gerin, Sheloi nemar by shir." Just like when it comes to when a person by the threshing floor, he has to give to the kohen. So minatera, there's no shir, and v'loi Ketrumas Meiser, not like when the individual has to give the truma to the Levi, shnemar by shir, which the Torah does give a shir. So that's what it means, that when you bake challah, you have to give, you have to separate part of the challah for the kohen, just like a trumas gerin. In other words, not like, Rashi says, not like meiser, which meiser the Torah gives a shir. Now, however, the chachamim, when it comes to baking challah, so the chachamim gave a shir. They said, for a regular balabayis is echad me'esem v'arba. It's 1 of 24th, which is like 4%. Ulenachtem, and when it comes to professional baker, how much does he have to give to the kohen? Is echad ma'arba shmeina is 1/48th, which is like 2%. Okay, that's what Rashi says. Simple pshat. Reishis harisesechem chalo torimu truma ketrumas gerin. That when you give, just like when it came to when by the threshing floor, by wheat or whatever you have to give to the kohen. So too, when a person bakes challah, he has to also give some to the kohen. How much? So it depends. When it's a balabayis, a guy baking it, it's 4%. Well, the nachtim is 2%. So now that I was going to ask 6 questions. Now from first time we have to understand Aleph. Rashi is dogmatic in yonif u'mudrashim u'ma'amori chazal ba'alacha nor when das is negei u'muchrachim pshuta shemikra. Rashi only quotes and brings midrashim and ma'amori chazal in halacha or from halacha if it's negei to the simple explanation of the pasuk. Rashi says many times, my purpose is to explain the simple pshat of the pasuk. So I understand what Rashi says when he quotes Ketrumas Geiden. He says that Ketrumas Geiden shlei nemer by shir, v'lei Ketrumas meiser nemer by shir. So I understand that makes a lot of sense. It's moving. While dermit is a mevar Parshas was dictated made magic zayin dafke Ketrumas Geiden. Now we can understand that Rashi is telling us why does the Torah stress that just like when you give truma of the threshing floor, we need to be an andere suk truma, not like another type of truma. So I understand because just like by the Trumas Geiden, which was not said a shir, but there's still a chiyuv to give the Trumas Geiden, so over here, challah, you have to give the Truma of a challah, but there's no shir mentioned. So the Rebbe, was is aber negeit zum Pirush HaKosov, der weiter Heimshech, aber Chacham knows no shir. Why does Rashi have to say, and by the way, Chacham gave a shir? Why is that negeit to Pshat al-Mikra? It's telling us halacha. But in Pshuta Mikra, Reishis Arisesechem Chala Torimu Truma Ketrumas Geiden Kein Torimu Oisa. It's not negeit to Pshat of why I should know what the Chachamim shares. Base. Number 2. Afilu wenn man so annehmen als bringen dich, als es nicht gesagt geworden kein Shir auf Chala. Weil bevort als das meint nur bei Mikra, aber der Rabbanon haben ja bestimmt das Shir. Now, even if you want to assume that Rashi quotes the amount required for Chala in order to point out that a Chachamim did place a measure, even while the pasuk itself does not, the question is, bleibt noch alles nicht moving, still not understood. Why does Rashi have to say what the shir was? Was the chayr does in ganzen nicht negiert zum Pirush Pshat HaKsuvim, or Rashi is doch nicht kein Sefer von Halacha. Kommt nur mit Pfarrer sein Pshuta Shemikra. Now, the chayr, even if you want to say that the Pshuta Shemikra is telling us that Chacham gave a shir, but even if you want to say that, the exact measurements really is entirely irrelevant to Pshat of the Psukim. And this does not align to Rashi's intention to explain Pshat of the Psukim. Gimel. When I feel eben soll einlernen, bedechik, as Rashi will man soll haben as saga, Vas to shir challah. Even if you want to say that, Rashi wants to, provide the person, the ben chomesh to mikro, with an understanding of the measurement of challah. So the chayra volter maspik even zokt nor the balabayis echad mechov dal. Rashi could have said that with the balabayis you give 1 of 24th. This is the shir versus shayach and negel lebnei adam. This is the shir which is negel to most people. Or even you find tagim yenison. Chach is weiter from shutash mikro v'pidish Rashi. As I bring nor dem shir elef mechov dal, and you see this in tagim yenison also. He brings a shir of 1 of every 24th. So the Rebbe for was dafür if mask meisu sein lenachtem echad ma'arbam shmeina. So why does he have to add for a baker 1/48? Why isn't it get the pshuta shemikra? Dalid. Nachmer. Furthermore, cheda is the hemshech and Pirush Rashi b'stira to aschalas Pirushi. Seemingly, the continuation of Rashi's comments contradict the first clause. Why? Hebt on zum Mafar sein as mit getrumas geiden. As chala is vitrumas geiden. So first Rashi comes along and says, what does it mean getrumas geiden? He says that trumas geiden tells me that chala is just like trumas geiden, which trumas geiden shall remember by shir, which by the geiden the Torah never said a shir. But like a trumas meiser, and not like trumas meiser, shenemer bashir, which there is a shir how much you have to give to the Levi. That says. Nid nor gititera nid kein shir by chala, nor der pasuk zokt on b'mefurish getrumas geiden kain torimu esa. So not only does the Torah not give a shir by chala, but it says the pasuk says clearly that you should give just like when you give trumas geiden, so too chala you should give also to the kain. You should take it as separated. As mendos upside nid mit kein shir, that you should separate it without a shir. And how does that fit according to Pshat? The Rashi concludes the statement. However, the Chacham did specify an amount, which this leads now to the next question. Even if you want to say, for whatever reason, that Rashi wants to say that the Chacham did specify an amount and the details Volt das mer maßen given zu sagen in dem Pirish auf den zweiten Pasuk titnu Hashem Truma. Wo Rashi sagt, lefi shelo yishamanu shir lechala nemer titnu shir bei Yikkutei shir nesina. Was dort volt gepasst der hemshech has chacham nas shir lebalabais lo nachtem chuli. Now, even if you want to say, for whatever reason, you want to point that the chacham did specify an amount and the details, it would have been more appropriate to include the details in explanation of the following pasuk. You shall give a gift to Hashem, where Rashi comments, since we have not yet heard the amount of the dough portion, it says you shall give. There should be enough for giving. In other words, that's enough to be considered a gift for some significance. So over there it would have been appropriate to say the Chacham did specify an amount, how much, this for the Balabais and this for the Nachtim. Umi, and the Rebbe brings a raya, Umi unvi mir gefind, as in Sifri, steht es Tage von Positin in Hashem Truma. Shebekidei matana lekein mikanato imeshir chalal shel Balabais. And the Chayra, we see this in the Sifri. The pasuk says you shall give a gift to Hashem. The Sifri says this gift should be a quantity that can be considered a gift to the Kain. And from here we learn the measurement of the challah for the household. The last question, L'idach kemen fregen. You can ask on the other way. Yibalas Rashi zokshen yodi shiurim shenas tochacham beprotis lebalabais echad mechov dal nachtem echad memam ches. Havas is nit mefared. If Rashi does include the distinct measurements that Chachamim prescribes for a householder, 2% and 4%, and the baker 2%, so why does Rashi not explain, as the Sifri says, the reason for the distinction between the Nachtem and the baker? Apparently, Rashi feels that once he specifies the measurements, this distinction is self-understood.